have an opportunity to have a higher power come into their life. I would never have found that, I don't believe, if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous and the men and women in the rooms. When I do get jammed up during the day, my sponsor always says, use the ACE card. And for a long time, I kept having to ask him, what's the ACE card again? And he said, that's prayer. Bill and Bob, two guys who met because he picked up the phone at the Mayflower Hotel. He made the call one after another till he found somebody. So, we all know the story of him walking across town. We're going to find a way to stay sober if that's what we want.
Welcome to the Daily Reflection Podcast with your hosts Michael L. and Lee M. On this podcast, we try to provide inspiration through interviews with members of the recovery community through the lens of the Daily Reflection book. Each day, a new inspirational passage and a conversation with someone from the recovery community. Today on the show, Matt F. from Sanibel Island, Florida. Matt shares on the concept of It Works. Before we get to the show, I'd like to ask a favor. If you're listening on a podcast network like Apple or Google, and you have the ability to give a rating, I would greatly appreciate it. Lee would greatly appreciate it. It's going to do a couple of things. It's going to give us feedback and let us know what you think of the show, but it's also going to help us in the ratings, help us be found by more people. Podcast episodes that get high ratings appear higher in the searches when people look for things like Daily Reflection. We truly would appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy this episode. Hey, Lee, how are you? It's March 1st today. What do we got going on?
Good morning, Mike. Well, I'm super excited today. We have with us Matt F. from Sanibel Island, Florida. And I don't know if you remember, but we had CCB on the show on January 31st. So this is CC's brother.
Oh, terrific.
He's here to share with us on It Works.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to being here today.
We get the podcast started in the same way every day. We ask the guest to read the daily reflection for today. Do you have that handy?
I do. Daily reflections for March 1st. It worked. It really does. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 88. When I got sober, I initially had faith only in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Desperation and fear kept me sober, and maybe a caring and/or tough sponsor helped. Faith in a higher power came much later. This faith came slowly at first, after I began listening to others share at meetings about their experience that I had never faced sober, but that they were facing with strength from a higher power. Out of their sharing came hope that I too would and could get a higher power. In time, I learned that a higher power, a faith that works under all conditions, is possible. Today, this faith, plus honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to work the steps of the program, gives me the serenity that I seek. It works. It really does.
Thanks. That's awesome. I'm curious, Matt, did you feel that desperation and fear that it talks about here in the Daily Reflection when you first came in?
I did. Desperation, fear, and confusion. I tried stopping drinking many different ways, and none of them really worked. And then I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and they talked about the first step, and something clicked. Like a light bulb went off. It made sense, the powerlessness and the unmanageability, and I put those two together. And I saw that where my drinking and drugs had taken me was, I found some hope, I guess. I guess I wasn't unique.
Did you struggle with the concept of a higher power?
I did, and it's kind of funny that today's reading is one that really rings a bell for me. I was at a meeting early in sobriety, and my sponsor at the time pulled me aside and said, if you have a problem with the God thing, a higher power, just use the group. And I can still remember that day. And eventually I thought of good orderly direction and a group of drunks, and it really worked. Seeing other people getting sober, hearing their story, hearing them share, I mean, that uniqueness just disappeared. But it took me going to meetings and being part of to really hear it and understand it.
Has that concept of higher power changed for you over the years? Because you said 30 years now.
Yes, it has. And I was trying to think when it did change. We've talked about the second step the last month, and here we are in the third month. And, I'm proud to say that I listened to others, and they talked about getting on their knees in the morning when they got up, having a power greater than themselves. And the program worked and my sponsor worked and the fellowship worked. But at some point, it just didn't. And again, I shared with others, and a friend of mine gave me a book of daily spiritual reading. And I started reading that and just trusting. And today I do have a higher power.
So 30 years ago, what was happening in your life that caused you to seek sobriety or recovery?
I had been to Alcoholics Anonymous earlier to get my parents off my back. I had friends who had gone to AA, and I had done something which I didn't know there was a name for it till I got to my first meeting, and someone called it a geographical cure. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old. After the Marines, I moved to Colorado, and then I moved to Vermont, to New York. And the thing that I found once I got to AA and listened to others was that I wasn't unique. A lot of people did that. And what they kept saying is we take ourselves and our problems with us. The environment might change, the location's going to be different, you're going to meet different people, but I kept having the same problems. And a lot of those problems, the time just got shorter and shorter, and I couldn't figure it out. And, I went to AA the first time just to get my parents off my back. And I heard that first step, and I knew that that's where I belonged. But I got to meetings late, I left early, I wasn't part of. And I ended up picking up. So 4 months later, after being really beat up, I was about to lose my job actually, working in Manhattan. And I knew about AA, and I had a phone number from the very first meeting I went to. I had probably lived in 3 different places. And I called that number, and it was a Sunday. And he came and picked me up, and he took me to a hospital in New Jersey. Actually, it was a town I grew up in. And I spent Christmas there, 1990. And meetings were brought in. We had a detox that was connected with the Mountainside Hospital detox, and I went to the 28-day program, and I got plugged in, and I saw the things that I hadn't done. The story was still the same. People were not drinking, their lives were getting better, and they were following the steps. They were part of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I got out, they welcomed me and they told me where they were going. And, I got plugged in, I got involved, and I met guys like myself. And that was one of the best things that happened to me.
What about your family? What kind of support did you get early on in your recovery? I bet your parents were relieved.
They were relieved. They knew I had a problem early on. And when I went to Alcoholics Anonymous the first time, they didn't know I had started drinking again. I'd moved out of the house, and I wasn't coming back and visiting as much, and I wasn't around to help. And they were on their way to move to Florida, actually. And when I called them that day, I was supposed to go over and help them load up the truck and pack some boxes. And I called from the hospital. My mother has a journal, and she's been keeping a journal for about 25 years. No, probably since 1985. And I read it today, actually. I was over there with my mom, and I saw the 1990, and I pulled it down. And she said in the December 25th, it's going to be a glorious Christmas. And I couldn't read the whole passage, but there was hope there. And to see her now 30 years plus, and she knows I'm in the program, she knows the people in the program, she's very happy for me. And my sister, Cece, as you both met, we go to meetings daily, a Zoom meeting that we're able to do. She's in Punta Vicia, Florida. I'm in Sanibel, Florida, but we get to see each other. We talk every day. She's one of the closest people to me. And she came to that detox, and I remember seeing her, and just the love was there. Part of her story is coming my 90-day celebration. She came to support. I think she got a lot out of it, and she got herself plugged into Alcoholics Anonymous, and she's a very special person.
You see this quite a bit in the program, siblings both in recovery, or multiple siblings from the same family. Do you think What do you think about the gene and the heredity factor of addiction?
I'm saved because the American Medical Association said that we have a disease. So when I meet new people and I tell them about the program and they're a little bit hesitant, I say that we have a disease. I kind of use that as a door opener. That there's anything wrong with us. We're not bad people. There's just something chemically wrong with us that when we take a drink or a drug that we can't stop. And my mom told me early on, my grandparents both died. Her parents both died of alcoholism. And she said that there was a good chance that I had the gene. She thinks it skipped a generation, but for her, I know that Alcoholics Anonymous has answered a lot of questions and helped me in a lot of ways. And I know that I was an alcoholic. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I think the recovery in families is special. And I think that we're all affected differently. I embrace, anybody who wants to be in this program. When I do see somebody whose sister or brother is in the program, or someone's father or their mother, I think it's really special because they're in the recovery community. They're working on recovery, trying to live a better life. And like this reading, have an opportunity to have a higher power come into their life. I would never have found that, I don't believe, if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous and the men and women in the rooms.
It's great. I think that too, it allows for a special kind of a relationship when two people are in recovery, siblings, because you're speaking the same language of the heart.
We support each other. We also grew up together, so we know the triggers and what upsets each other. And when those come up, we can help each other with them. Our brother came to visit us recently, and Cece's husband, Ed, is in the program. And, I kept thinking about how it was going to affect me and what was going to happen to me. And Ed said, what do you think it's for David that you and Cece are both in the program? How will that affect him? And I was glad he said that because I was able to get out of myself and look at maybe how he was going to see the two of us.
How does working in the third step look for you in your program today? How does higher power show up as a resource for you today?
I've heard people talk about their higher power. They've talked about the footsteps in the sand poem. I've also heard that people say, who moved, you or God? God is always with us. So some of those things have resonated with me. But for me, I have a sponsor who one of his sayings is, just because you didn't do it today doesn't mean you can't do it tomorrow. And if I didn't pray in the beginning, he says, today you can pray. And I really have seen the benefits of it. I have to be honest with you. I pray for people who I work with. I pray for my friends. If I feel that I may have a resentment over somebody or am I angry about something, I pray for them that they may have the peace that I'm looking for. And I guess it's getting out of myself, but it seems to work. I don't have as many troubles when I get away and out of myself and pray for others. It seems to work, so I've been doing it pretty regularly. I also look at my character defects, my shortcomings, and I try to think about things that I want to work on and to be a better person. And those are in my prayers. When I do get jammed up during the day, my sponsor always says, use the ACE card. And for a long time, I kept having to ask him, well, what's the ACE card again? And he said, that's prayer. So it's in my life today. When I choose to use prayer, I'm in a better place. So I try to get in a regular habit.
We've got folks that are listening in that may not understand what's going on in their life. Maybe they're reaching a desperate point and are looking for options in recovery. What would you tell the newcomer?
Well, we do have some newcomers. It's interesting that we thought when the meetings were gone, we couldn't meet anymore because of the pandemic, and Zoom came up. Would we find newcomers? And fortunately, there are newcomers coming to the Zoom meetings. It's great. We have some people who've never been to a live meeting, some that have over 90 days, and I have a friend that's coming up on 2 months. I just tell them to hang in there. I try to share my experience, strength, and hope and what worked for me and listen to him, what he is going through. I've gotten away from banging AA down someone's throat. I think it's more important to be able to listen and then to share how I stayed sober today and how to, be a better person. And it's great because a couple of these people are maybe on a pink cloud, but they love the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, even if it's through Zoom. That's contagious for me. And you can hear the truth in people. I've met people before that were maybe like me the first time I came in. Just, the judge sent them there or just trying to keep the lid on things. I can only share my experience, strength, and hope. And that's what I try to do today.
We suggest to newcomers that service is a really great thing to get into right away if we're trying to stay sober. But we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, so it's hard to put up chairs and make coffee. What are your suggestions for newcomers that might be looking for opportunities to be of service?
Well, I think the two of you are both doing service in this pandemic. So there is opportunities out there. We don't have the chairs, the ashtrays, the brooms, the greeters, which is kind of tough. But people are hosting meetings, and in our group, we've rotated the hosting, and we're trying to get more people involved in doing the readings. A lot of groups are starting up that are doing book meetings. They're reading the big book or they're doing the 12 and 12, and they're just trying to bring in the newcomers and make them feel comfortable. And one of the things is no one knows how long this pandemic is. We didn't know how it was going to start, and we're all hoping it is going to end. You both probably know that there are outdoor meetings, and we have a meeting that meets on Tuesdays outdoor. And my friend Ben, who's less than 2 months, he comes to that. And he says how important that is to see people and to be part of the group. So I think that we're resilient people. We found a way to drink and drug. If we want to, we're going to find a way to stay sober, and we're going to find a way to help other people. And it's just amazing. It's something new every day. And I look forward to it. I don't think we're done yet. We're just going to keep growing. Bill and Bob, two guys, who met. And because he picked up the phone at the Mayflower Hotel, and he made the call one after another till he found somebody. And, we all know the story of him walking across town. And, we're going to find a way to stay sober if that's what we want.
Anything else you want to tell the audience before we wrap?
No, I just want to thank you both for giving me an opportunity to talk about this. And there are no coincidences. This reading, when Cece heard the date, she laughed, and it really tells my story, and it brings back the person who I was when I came into these rooms, and maybe what I was capable of understanding. But the longer we stick around, the better we'll become, and the more opportunities we'll find in different ways. And I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago or 6 months ago. And hopefully, in 6 months or 6 years, I won't be the same person today. And, recovery, it means a lot to me, as I've said, with CC in the program and my brother-in-law and the friends that I have today. It's all due to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I thank you for letting me share for a few minutes on that.
Thank you for being willing to come and share with us. Beautiful story. And I see why Cece said we had to have you on the show. You're both amazing people. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lee.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Truly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks to Matt for stopping by today, for sharing his experience, strength, and hope. Thanks to you, the listeners. Greatly appreciate your support. If you want to find us online, you can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Daily Reflection Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Daily Reflector. We also write about recovery on our blog at blog.dailyreflectionpodcast.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.